Welcome back to Oh and Another Thing, your favorite news and politics podcast. Back for, another podcast. Back for another week, another rousing rendition, another fantastic edition of your favorite news and politics podcast. We've been preparing ourselves to live in a world where we get to ignore Donald Trump for the next at least 2.5 years before he can start running for president again in 2022. So we've been living in, at least I have been, I don't know, you've been living in, have you been ignoring Trump's tweets? Have you been ignoring Trump lately?
I don't follow him.
See, okay, so we've been, you never followed him though, right? I never followed him.
I only see it if other people retweet it, but I've been less on Twitter.
Yeah, so it's been nice to live in a world where we've been able to just ignore him now, and I think that's been good for all of us. I had no idea what was going on his Twitter for like the past 2 weeks or so, until this morning. He had a good one about how, where was it? Let me see if I can find it. And I only saw this one this morning, and I only want to bring it up because it's hilarious. Where'd it go? We'll find it later. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we're back. There's enough going on that I figure we can do a podcast before we go into the holiday season. Good news for you, the Oh and Another Thing listener. Maybe. We're staying on through the holidays. We're not going to take a holiday Christmas break, if you will. There was plans to maybe take off, until after the new year, until Inauguration Day. We were thinking about, and we're definitely going to do this. And if you're someone who has an advent calendar lying around at home, what was it if you start the advent calendar on Christmas Eve?
Oh, you told me. I don't know. I thought it was after Christmas.
After Christmas. Day after Christmas. You're right. So if you start an advent calendar the day after Christmas, it will take you all the way up to Inauguration Day. Essentially, a second advent season for you to enjoy this holiday season. So we will be doing that. Anyway, there was talk of us not coming back until Inauguration Day, just because it's been nice to be away. It's been nice to not pay attention to every dumb tweet, every frivolous lawsuit, every Rudy Giuliani non sequitur, whatever. It's been nice to just ignore it all for a little bit, because we now live in a world where we know that in the next month and a half or so, things could start running better, at least. We know that Joe and Kamala are not our solution for everything. We know that is not the be-all and end-all. We are not going to have the ideal society we could have had, but it'll just be nice. It'll be nice, and it's been nice to anticipate it.
You would talk that way about Times Person of the Year.
What should I say about Times Persons of the Year?
But you know what the thing is? They don't even set it up like that. It's like they're always like, Time Person of the Year. And then they pick multiple people and they're like, haha, are you surprised?
Big surprise. Look, we got you guys. It's not just one person, it's two persons.
Thought it was going to be a person, even though in our finalists, there were multiple persons for many of the choices.
It's so dumb, because they could change the title. Okay, first off, they could change the title of Person of the Year to Persons of the Year, or to just a whole of the year issue. Because they already do like 3 different of the years. I don't know if you saw that they
sometimes they're not even persons.
Yeah, well,
sometimes
they did.
They're movements.
I mean, they already do the Athlete of the Year. They do the Person of the Year. Now they're doing Kid of the Year, which is fucked. Also, I think Kid of the Year is so stupid. Hey, everybody, look! Here's this one 13-year-old that came up with a way to purify water. If you're not doing that, don't waste my fucking time.
Put so much pressure on
yeah. It's just one of those things where it's one of these added categories that we don't need to have.
Wasn't there a year where it was like you?
Yes, they put the mirror on the cover, I think. I don't know if that's fake from like a TV episode, but I think they did do that in like the mid-2000s. They should just do that every year. It's you. You're the Person of the Year. Big cop-outs from time. But no, it just, and then imagine being like Okay, and I know Dr. Fauci and the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare workers, they're not doing it for the accolades. I know they're not out here. They didn't say, you know what, this is my chance to be Times Person of the Year.
And if they did, that's very upsetting.
I know there's not some healthcare worker in rural Virginia going, you know, this is my chance to be recognized. I'm really got to step up to the plate today.
They turned their badges in yesterday at 10:01
Yeah.
p.m.
Once the news broke, they said, you got to be fucking kidding me, and handed it in. But you got to feel a little upset that you lost out on Persons of the Year or on this just being recognized or appreciated.
Yeah. Well,
just because Joe and Kamala aren't Donald Trump and Mike Pence.
Yeah. Well, I think the weird thing, too, is that they post the finalists. I think that part is weird. Because, one, it's not a race. Like, no one is running or campaigning. So you picking the finalists is like, don't tell us. Because you make yourself look worse when you say that the finalists are healthcare workers and the movement for Black Lives, and then you don't pick them. You know? Like, if you just never showed the finalists, then they would make you look less bad. I don't know.
It's just not everything needs to be a presentation. It feels like everything has to be a TV show, a whole special. Because then you get to, you know, get the views and everybody pays attention to it. It feels like we used to just wake up and there would be a billionaire on the cover saying they did something, and that was your Person of the Year. It used to be, you know, we'd wake up January whatever, and there'd be, or we'd wake up December whatever, and there'd be Bill Gates on a magazine cover, and Times Person of the Year, and be like, oh great, he got Person of the Year this year, oh my goodness.
Well, they set themselves up for a letdown by dragging it out for so much.
Yeah.
And I know they probably get, like, more press, and they get more people watching, but when you let it linger for so long, and you post finalists, and you tease it, then, like, no matter what they chose was gonna be a letdown, you know?
And it's funny because it's like it's designed to distract from all the other very important things that had been going on for the past couple of days. Like yesterday, we had this coronavirus bill, like, at the 5-yard line. They're further away now than they were yesterday.
Yeah.
McConnell told them not to vote yes on it, and said if they vote yes on it, he's just going to get a coalition together of people to vote no on it in the Senate. So, like, don't even waste your time with it. One of the more important things happening, and we spent the entire day trying to figure out who's going to be the Times Person of the Year. Like, it's the big Masked Singer event we've all been waiting for. That's how they should just do it. Next year they should just reveal the Times Person or Persons of the Year on the Masked Singer.
What if the Person of the Year was the person on the Masked Singer? Like, they drag out the Masked Singer. I have never seen the Masked Singer. I should say that.
We've never watched one episode of it. We don't know what goes on.
From what I've read, it seems like you don't find out the same episode. Like, it's dragged out, like, over
it's a whole
the
season?
Yeah. So, like, what if they announced
I thought there was multiple. I thought there was multiple Masked Singers.
I think there are. You know what? It's not my place to speculate about the Masked Singer. I don't know what goes on there. But
I don't know.
It would be funny if we had the Times Person of the Year come out in a costume and then reveal themselves.
After singing a power ballad.
And no more
finalists. They have to sing "Leather and Lace" by Stevie Nicks, and then they unveil themselves. And Don Headley, if there's got to be two of them. Imagine Joe and Kamala singing "Leather and Lace" to each other before they unveil themselves.
They didn't even put Kamala in the finalists. That's why I'm like, what were the finalists for? She wasn't even listed.
You know, it was funny.
Nothing
we were
matters.
joking yesterday.
Everything's a farce.
We were joking yesterday morning about who it could be before we knew who the finalists were, and I said, "What?" And I said, "What if it's Kamala?"
You did, and I was like, she's not a finalist.
Half jokingly, I said, what if it's Kamala? Just because I could think of, again, 100 other people that deserve it instead of just these two politicians who got elected just for not being the other people. But, anyway, I guess you can't stop winning. It's just been, and maybe time just didn't say, hey, look, we got Trump on the way out the door. But, whatever. It doesn't matter.
They also made him Person of the Year 2 years ago. So
was he Person of the Year 2 years ago or in 2016 when he won?
I don't know, but they made him Person of the Year at some point, so when I saw him on the finalists, I was already like, oh, they're not going to give it to the same person twice. And then when Joe and Kamala got it, everyone was like, oh, Donald Trump lost again! Sucks to be you, Mr. President! And it's like, it's just not a campaign, nobody won, nothing matters.
Nothing matters in this.
It's fine. Let them have their fun, let them enjoy it.
Melania's Christmas looks nice.
Oh, whatever.
Did you see Melania's Christmas decorations?
I didn't.
Nice. They at least look nice this year. I mean, who gives a fuck about Christmas, but
Did
they
she
look
see
nice.
ours?
No, she probably hasn't seen ours. We should tweet
How
it at
many
her, though.
trees does Melania have? We've got 2.
This year, we're going for an austerity Christmas. We are doing lavish.
What does that mean?
I mean,
What's
just
austerity?
extra spending, just to start going. Oh, we got 2 trees here, one on either side of our flat screen television that I didn't buy. I've inherited from, I believe, its third owner.
It's covered in virtual
I guess I'd be its
stretch
third
marks.
owner because it went Ronnie Rubin, Russell Rubin, Vince Patrone. Shout out to the lineage of our television. Yeah, it's covered in Burt hair and corn. So Burt Scats and Corn, our producer here, at Owen, another thing. We use the world's best cat litter, and it's a corn base, and you can flush it down the toilet. We don't do it. We play California's rules. California says you can't flush the world's best cat litter down the toilet. So we don't do it, but we could. We have a litter genie, and we put it in. Aside from all of that, Burt Beans, our producer. Sorry to be too informal, Bertram. He's upset with me, and he's upset at me for telling this story right now. One of his favorite activities to do is to go make in his corn, as he puts it. He goes, "Father, I'm going to make. I'll see you in 5." He goes, makes, comes back. He'll wipe his paws on the linoleum floor just enough to get it all over the linoleum floor. But then he'll come into the room and he'll jump all over everything. Which then turns into us following him around. Again, Burt Beans, our producer, with a thing of... Who's disinfectant spray we're using these days? Mr. Clean's?
Mr. Clean's.
We're using the Mr. Clean's disinfectant spray, which this is not an endorsement, but good product. No, it is an endorsement. It's not an ad. It's an endorsement.
It's an endorsement.
Good product. Gets the bean paws off furniture when we need it to. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser Antibacterial Spray. That's your ad. Eat shit, Mr. Clean. Eat shit, Mr. Clean. Who do you think wins in a fight, Mr. Clean or the brawny guy?
The Bronner guy?
Brawny guy from the napkins, from the paper towels.
Oh, Mr. Clean would destroy the Bronner
You
guy.
think so?
Yeah, Mr. Clean is horrifying.
Do you think Mr. Clean's killed before?
Yes.
Multiple times?
Yes.
Anyone? Princess Diana?
No.
Was that one of his?
I don't think so. I don't think he was around then.
Wow. I thought Brawny Man would stand a chance just because,
No.
axe and all that, usually wielding. But, oh well. Anyway, did you see there was in our neighborhood, we're on Citizen, we're pretty active on Citizen. And by active, I mean we watch it. I don't know. I comment sometimes from time to time. But, there was a man brandishing a knife on X Street a couple days ago, and everybody in the comments was like, "Oh, who hasn't had a knife brandished?" Or, "Oh, look at me, I have a knife," and it was really a good time. But it was part of a string of, and someone mentioned this in the Citizen comments the other day, and I don't know if you, the listener, are on Citizen or not and have noticed this trend before. There'll be days where you get 3 or 4 of the same incident reported. Within 2 hours of each report, none of them followed up upon with anything else. Almost like Citizen is going in and padding their numbers for what's going on in neighborhoods. Coming up with oh, here's this man brandishing a knife. Yesterday, or the day of the knife brandishing, there were 3 other knife wields or brandishes, which is what got me to this point. I mentioned how the brawny man would wield an axe.
Of course.
But then the day before that, someone pointed out that there were 4 different woman assaults in the neighborhood, all within 3 blocks of each other. And then before that, there was a burglary day where it seemed like there were just burglaries back to back to back, all within a block of it. And someone pointed out that there's no way. Granted, crime can happen, and crime can be anything at any time, and it's really just a matter of being in the wrong place at the wrong time if you're part of a crime. But there's no way. there's no way that these are the exact identical crime, every crime for an entire day. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I wonder if there isn't something to that, because I think Citizen done a great job with their coronavirus, their content, their COVID tracker. Kind of lagging on their neighborhood bulletin side of things, I've noticed. Anyway, that's what Citizen. I hate Citizen, honestly, but it is nice to get on and see what's going on around you, I guess. What do we got headlines wise today? We have the vaccine. The good news of the day: the vaccine's coming. We don't have to wait for Walter Reed pull and garden equipment level care anymore. We can just hopefully get the vaccine, hopefully by June of 2021, they're saying, for all of us. They're saying that we could have, because the FDA did emergency authorization, or the board at the FDA voted yes. Okay, so the board of the FDA voted in favor of the Pfizer version of the coronavirus vaccine yesterday, saying that that's the version of the vaccine that they find to be the most effective, that they would prefer to have like in service and be like the official vaccine of the United States of America, if you will.
So what happens to Moderna?
Oh, just
get wrecked.
Yeah, just get wrecked. Exactly. Yeah, get wrecked, Moderna. Give it. Well, they're gonna ship. That's the one they'll ship over to. No, never mind. Doesn't work. Can't make that joke.
Okay.
Yeah, never mind. I was gonna talk about how they send the championship T-shirts for the team that loses.
Oh.
Sad. Boy. So Pfizer is going to be the vaccine that we go with, and that sets it up for FDA emergency authorization on Saturday, which means that, according to Alex Azar, the health secretary, who's been wrong before, that we could have a vaccine Monday or Tuesday inside of people's bodies. So by Monday or Tuesday, we could have our own Maggie from North Ireland. Bill Shakespeare, who is not Bill Shakespeare, by the way. All right. So there's been a lot of talk this year about one Mr. Santa Claus. Maybe if you have children under the age of 17, which is whenever I realized Santa Claus wasn't real in the room. Sorry, I guess I spoiled it there for you. But if you want to get them out of the room, close your ears for this one.
I don't think people listen to your podcast with their children.
I don't know if any of my listeners have children.
Carrie does. Tell Boomy to.
Yeah, if Boomy's listening, Carrie, if Boomy's listening, get those ears covered. We know it's going to be a particularly hard year for Santa Claus to make his route this year. Obviously, a lot of pitfalls. Can he come in and out of houses willy-nilly? Does he have one of those disinfecting guns that's supposed to shoot disinfectant spray all over you, like one of the football teams had? I think the Colts had one of those. The Cowboys.
I heard that Santa Claus has been sitting in one of those antibacterial blue light chambers for the last 3 months, kind of in a crypt sort of sense.
That may be true.
Mm-hmm.
That may be true, but
I heard that his sleigh has blue lights in it.
I think what was proven to us this week with this William Shakespeare getting vaccinated in England, or Covington. Covington's in England. I know he's from Covington, I think is what the town was called. Anyway, he was like the second or third person to get the vaccine. So hear me out. Santa Claus. Yeah. We all know him and love him as Santa Claus, but do we think that he can really stay in the North Pole for 365 days out of the year? Do you really think with advances in technology, in industry, in industrialization, in factory work, and in factory labor, and just, the computerization of work, and really honestly the de-industrializing of our workforces hasn't found its way to the North Pole? Do we really think that there are elves hand-making all these electronic toys? Are there elves making iPads up there? No. Let's get real about this. Let's get real. All right. Santa Claus and the workers of the North Pole, who I hope are unionized at this point. It's been hundreds, thousands of years that they've been at this. You have to figure they found a way to get their workers' rights and eat them too up north. We can only hope. We have to assume they've figured out a way that they only have to work maybe even a quarter of the year maybe the 4 months leading up to Christmas. Maybe they ramp things up in March. I don't know. But it's definitely not a full year's work anymore. Definitely not a full year's work. So, I reckon this William Shakespeare, that's no William Shakespeare at all. That could just be our good friend Kris Kringle. And is, in fact, coming down to get his coronavirus vaccine so that he can deliver packages throughout the world without being picked up by the looky-loos of society, you know. Kris Kringle comes in for a coronavirus vaccine on December 9th. Could this be why it's all of a sudden here for us? I don't know. A lot pointing to that theory being correct, I think. So, yeah, Santa Claus will be fine because Santa Claus is already vaccinated and was, in fact, the second person to do it. That Maggie was supposed to be the third or fourth, but there was a clerical error that got her to be the first one anyway. So that's exciting. We'll all be vaccinated here someday soon. I know the story that had me most mad this week was that the Trump administration could have bought more coronavirus vaccines, but just chose not to. So yeah, there's that. There could have been more, enough to go around, but instead I think I saw New York's gonna get 4,000 coronavirus vaccines to use in the next week once it's finalized, I think was the number I saw. So there's not going to be a ton of these vaccines right off the bat. And I hope we can find a way to get ahead of this with the messaging, is that though the vaccines have started to make their way out there, the number of vaccines that we have are enough to protect the communities that we are vaccinating. They are enough to protect the elderly community. They are enough to protect the frontline healthcare workers that are getting vaccinated, will be getting vaccinated. However, there is not enough of the vaccine to go around for you to just go to a random public pool party in Miami with 50 to 60 of your closest friends within the next month and a half. Just because there's a vaccine that we've had enough doses for to create some kind of immunity in a small population of the larger population does not mean that we'll be back to a full functioning society. Does not mean that there will be a vaccine inside you by next week. You are more than likely not going to get the corona vaccine for another year. Maybe, 8 months, ideally. But it's not going to happen for us, all of us, right away. So it's worth keeping that in mind going forward, especially knowing that we've hit such inexplicable highs in our coronavirus numbers over just the past week. I mean, yesterday we had numbers that surpassed 9/11 for the first time. I know we've talked about having 9/11 numbers before, and there may have been a couple of days at the start of this where we had more than 2,700 some deaths. But we got back to that number yesterday and passed that number yesterday, and we're probably going to pass it again today. And the CDC director said we're probably going to pass that number for the next 2 to 3 weeks today. And in the 2 to 3 weeks after that, after Christmas, it's likely that we see those numbers jump even more because of holiday travel finally catching up to us, that there's a chance where we start seeing 4,000 a day, 5,000 a day perhaps, on the worst side of this. And that's not, obviously, hopefully that's not going to happen, and that's not a guaranteed number. That is just one of the outlier numbers that's been offered for how bad this could get should we not follow the protocols that we've been given over the past 8 months that we haven't done a good job following, but we've done at least a serviceable job following that have kept us safe enough to this point, I guess, but not really. So that's not great, but the good news is that it could be over soon, which is fun for all of us. What else do we have going on here today? This wild story was... there's still a lot I'd like to know about this, and a lot I need to read about this, but did you hear about that scientist in Florida whose house got raided by the FBI.
Yeah.
Because she did she work for the Florida State Department or whatever, Department of Health or whatever it does, and have actual like coronavirus data on her computer that contradicted what they had? Exactly. That's what my understanding of it has been at this point, was that this doctor had real coronavirus numbers on a laptop or on in her possession at her home from her work, and had been pretty outspoken about Governor Ron DeSantis putting out false information, the Florida State Department of Health putting out false information and coronavirus numbers that made the outbreak look less bad than it was. And they believe that she has numbers that contradict that. Anyway, the FBI raided her house on Tuesday, literally broke down the front door and went in and like took her hard drives and took her computers. And I believe she even got arrested in all of this. And I know this is a story that escaped a lot of people's I don't want to say vision, but that I know a lot of people definitely didn't see. And I have a theory as to why. It's because I only saw it on Twitter because it was on a hashtag that I wouldn't normally click. But I think I got directed there from another story anyway, but it got caught up on the tag Death Santis. Hashtag Death Santis, which, a good pun. Funny. Makes sense. I get it. However, a lot of times, whenever things like Death Santis trend, and there's a major news story attached to that trend, and it gets lost in that trend, a lot of people that gloss over just stupid hashtags like Death Santis, that are like just, catchy, obviously partisan, obviously you know what the stories are going to be under that tag. It keeps important information like this story involving this doctor who had actual real statistics that could counteract the fake statistics given out by the state of Florida to its citizens, that got lost and kind of fell into I don't want to say partisan bubble or vacuum or anything, but fell into a vacuum essentially where only a very certain group of people saw the story and it got around to a very certain group of people. Isn't good for the information and the ability to take in news in this country and decipher real news from fake news, because this is a real story. This is a real thing that we have evidence of. This doctor has come forward and said, no, I was arrested. My house was raided. We know it happened. There's evidence of it happened. She's been on all of the news shows talking about how it happened. Please don't play the sound. Please don't play sound. Okay. Whew. I scrolled over a video and I know my speakers were on. So what this doctor had done was she helped build the statistical dashboard showing how the virus is rapidly spreading in the state, and to show how the state being hesitant to start doing broader restrictions was dangerous for the state. She was fired 2 months into it because she had started, raise too many alarms. And then that leads her up to this. There is evidence that this was a pointed attack against her, that she was the obvious target of some kind of, keep your mouth shut or we will do more to you and your family kind of intimidation from the state of Florida, the FBI in Florida. But then you also have this other story this week about Eric Swalwell and this Chinese spy, that there's still a lot more that we do not know about, and it all seems a little goofy. So it's interesting because it's easier. Both are very compelling stories, honestly. But the Eric Swalwell story it's unverified to this point, but it's oddly believable. I don't think it's true entirely. There's a story out right now going around that Eric Swalwell, the representative from Florida, I think Orlando? Is he from Orlando? I don't remember where he's from.
He's from Florida? Why did I think he was the
Yeah.
guy? Was he the guy that ran for president?
Yes.
I thought it was California. Are you sure?
No, I'm pretty sure he's Florida.
You're probably right. Let me look.
I'm gonna look too. I'm gonna look also.
No, it's California.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Eric Swalwell. Where in California?
The 15th district, Alameda County, Contra Costa. I'll pull it up so I can see where. Yeah, it's the guy that ran for president.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so yeah, California. Even so, a story that's come out that's kind of like unbelievable, hard to believe, but is it true? I don't know. Do you think it's true?
I don't know. I don't know enough about Eric Swalwell to know.
I don't know.
If that's something he would do.
That'd be a shame.
Politician partaking in dirty deeds sounds.
It'd be a
peaceful to
shame.
me.
I like that Eric Swalwell. I don't like Eric Swalwell. I kind of thought he was a douche anyway, but... Huh?
Why?
He just looks like one. He just looks like he looks okay. So Eric Swalwell kind of, and the reason I kind of believe the story that he was having an affair with a Chinese spy. So the whole story is that Eric Swalwell had been infiltrated and kind of like set up by the Chinese government by having an affair with this Chinese spy that he was then funneling info to on behalf of the Chinese government, kind of. So if that's true, holy mackerel. And the only reason that I really would believe it, and the reason I'm skeptical to believe it, is because I haven't seen any real reporting on it outside of, like, Fox News and some, what do you call it, op-ed writers. Because you can read an op-ed in a story like in a newspaper like the Washington Post, and that op-ed not be credible, even though it's in a very credible, like, news source. Like the Wall Street Journal, notorious for that. That's where this story has been mostly coming out of. Same with the Hunter Biden story this week, which is also fascinating. It turns out that Bill Barr knew that there was real investigations into Hunter Biden's taxes. Now, how legitimate they are, Hunter Biden has come out this week and said that he thinks that, or that his lawyer has told him that, everything's fine, nothing really to worry about. Same thing as it's been this entire time. Probably not a real story here to go along with, but it's something for us to talk about, so that's come up this week, so we do have to bring it up. Bill Barr apparently knew about this investigation for months, but didn't act on it at all until after the election, because he knew it would influence the election in a way that would change the election. So I don't know if Bill Barr did a good thing or not, but that came out today, that he had known about these investigations going on, that we just found out about this week because Hunter Biden was subpoenaed, and he came forward and told the press that he was subpoenaed, and Joe Biden is not implicated in any way in any wrongdoing, and in fact there is no wrongdoing even reported in the filing. They are just doing due diligence. There may be, who knows, but that's the story on that so far. Yeah, just a weird news week, because everything is just in stasis. The things that matter right now are coronavirus relief, pandemic, and I guess that the Republicans are still trying to overthrow the election. We know there's no coronavirus relief coming. It's a pain in the bottom, but we know that we aren't going to get the bipartisan bill from the Senate. We know that's not going to happen because we know Mitch McConnell isn't going to let it happen, and we know he's not going to let it happen because he has said so much. He has said that he is not going to vote on it. He has said that he is going to rally enough senators behind him to stop it, and we know he can do that because there's been senators left and right on the Republican side of the aisle along the way the past 4 years who have in some way or the other found a way to show their loyalty and fealty to the president in a different number of ways, in a different scenario, every step of the way. New ones have come out to do it in various ways, but somewhere along the line, every Republican senator has already sold themselves out once or twice on behalf of President Trump and Mitch McConnell. Why the fuck not do it again? So if they're not going to get behind McConnell and the Republican Party, who is becoming increasingly radicalized and right-wing, we've seen their voter base turns out more than anything for, again, radicalized right-wing candidates that are closer to tyrants than presidents. that's going to become the new model for the Republican Party's success. So, essentially, Republican senators, Republican legislatures, Republican lawmakers, over the past month, have been given two choices. You either get behind the president and Mitch McConnell and other bad faith Republicans on this journey to overthrow the election and overturn the results in favor of getting Trump to be the president for the next 4 years, by any means necessary, be it legislative action, be it changing the electors in states, be it having a state like Texas file lawsuits to the Supreme Court against 4 states that voted the opposite direction of it, whatever. That is going to become the new normal for the Republican Party. That is what it's all about. That's one of their options. You either do that or you get behind us in blocking coronavirus relief. That way we can kneecap the incoming Biden administration from keeping the relief that's needed to get out to getting out to people during that administration, so we can say in 2022, look how little Joe Biden and the Democrats did in the House whenever you guys needed to when you guys needed the American citizen, without ever having to really understand that the reason nothing got done was the same reason nothing got done in the waning years of the Obama administration, which is because Republican lawmakers banded together to keep anything from happening. Those are the two options for Republicans in government right now. Either obstruct the election or obstruct Americans' lives from getting back on track and being, I guess you could say, safe and livable. Worth having. So those are the two paths for a Republican leader right now. Not good paths either way. But that is why you are seeing what you are seeing. That is why there is not going to be a meaningful coronavirus relief bill. That's why the closest we're getting to direct payments is likely the $600 checks that the White House said they would like to send us one time. So it's very likely that we all end up getting one $600 check to get us through the next 8 months until, or the next 3 months until we see what's happening at the other end of the holiday season, or what's happening at the other end of winter, I should say. And those are the paths, because you figure Mitch McConnell was able to hold on to his seat. That's where this all begins. If Mitch McConnell goes up against Charles Booker in Kentucky, you could argue we're looking at a totally different thing here. Now, I know it's easy to say that's not true because Charles Booker is not guaranteed to beat Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. I understand that, and I understand that the platform that Charles Booker would have ran on, which would have been a heavy social justice platform, with defund the police attached to it, may not have been an electoral winner down ballot for a lot of candidates in a lot of states. That's not me saying that I disagree with defunding the police, because I do. It's me saying that there's a very good likelihood that is. What?
Because you don't.
No, I do agree with defunding the police. But I also agree that could be something that down ballot.
That's not to say I don't agree. Never mind. I'm confused.
Regardless, I think we should defund the police. It doesn't matter. We should take money away from police departments and reallocate those funds into stopping crime from happening in the first place, into making society that doesn't need crime, or that has less crime because there is less need for crime to happen, if that makes sense. But there's also a real possibility, and enough data pointing to this, that candidates that ran with that model down ballot in this election did poorly in this election in some places that are less liberal. I know it's easy to point to the progressive people that got elected this year getting reelected, and that is great and is wonderful that they got reelected, but it's also important to remember that they got reelected on those platforms in bluer areas where those platforms do better. And I don't think that that's to say that we need to stop talking about defunding the police and stop taking action toward defunding the police and making police departments smaller and limiting their availability to like military grade equipment and to keep allowing them to stop allowing them to kill black people. Not saying we just to stop that mission at all, but there is a discussion to be had here about how you can sell that to people down ballot and make it work in these redder places where you're going to have to make some inroads. So that is a discussion that we do have to have. This is the place to have it, not the day to have it. But that is a possibility. Back to Mitch McConnell now. So Mitch McConnell will still have power into I think he's in the Senate now until 2026 maybe. 2024, 2026. I'm trying to think what his term limit is. I don't remember if that's a 4 or a 6. I know Ted Cruz gets to be on for a while now since he beat Beto O'Rourke, which is a real shame. Anyway, so Mitch McConnell will still have power over a Republican Senate, whether he's the minority or the majority leader in it, which also comes down to the Georgia runoffs, which is something else we have to talk about at some point, because that's rapidly approaching. What day is that?
What day is
What day is the Georgia runoff? Is that January
5th.
January 5th or 6th?
Yeah.
January 5th or 6th?
That's before the inauguration.
That's right around the corner. That's less than a month away at this point. And I think I talked about a couple weeks ago how there was talk that all of this don't trust the election talk amongst Republicans could cost them. I don't know. I don't know if we should bank on that anymore. If we've seen anything, it's that Republicans vote regardless what they're told, what's going on. They'd rather be safe than sorry. I know there's a lot of people organizing in Georgia, and I know there's a lot of people in Georgia getting things organized and money going into Georgia. I just hope they can do enough to get it done, because if they don't, that's when the problems really arise for the Biden administration over the next 2 years and possibly further down the road, because we have to remember there's a real possibility that if Republicans win both seats in Georgia and they have the ability to absolutely kneecap the Biden administration for the next 2 years, that in 4 years we end up with Donald Trump Jr. or Eric or Tom Cotton on the worst end of things as president. We'd be lucky if we ended up with Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump as president, because then we'd get to have an idiot like their father running the country and attempting what their dad did, having learned some lessons along the way, but we know they never learn their lessons because they're Trumps. So it wouldn't be that much difference. There is still a chance that our democracy could survive another Trump or Trump Jr. presidency, but could we survive a Cotton or a Cruz or a Cotton or a Cruz? I don't think we'd have to worry about Marco Rubio. He's too wishy-washy. I don't think he'd actually ever follow through with anything. But Tom Cotton, I could see him sending the troops into New York City to round all of us up at some point here. There is always that possibility.
Tom Cotton should just be outlawed from society.
Yeah. So there is always that fear of there is a long game here to be played, and Mitch McConnell does the long game better than anybody. And that is what he is getting Republican senators to believe. There is two paths here. You either kneecap Biden in the next 2 years, or we just let Trump be president for 4. Those are our options. Take your pick. So far, we've been lucky enough that they're willing to take a shot. Most of these Republicans, or some of these Republicans at least, enough for them to keep things from getting off the rails here, are willing to say, okay, we got a shot in Georgia. We can do the kneecap in over the next 2 years. That's fine. Whereas some, the 106 representatives who signed that lawsuit yesterday, or that amicus brief, whatever that means, to get the Supreme Court to take up this case from Texas to overturn the election in Pennsylvania and 4 other states, argued by Ted Cruz, which is a great way, as Ted Cruz has said on Twitter, a great chance to heal the divides in this country would be for us to have a huge weeks-long court case that plays out on the world stage, where we're all very upset with one another during the, it's just stupid. Ted Cruz was trying to make the argument on Twitter this week that we need to argue this court case that Texas is putting forward, this lawsuit Texas is putting forward, in front of the Supreme Court because of how divisive everything has gotten. And he believes that the only way to heal the deep wounds of this country is for us to get to the bottom of what happened in this election, which is long word for him to say, I get to argue in front of the Supreme Court, fellatio every GOP member in the country all at once on national TV, and I'm a front runner for 2024, and we get to overturn the election results. And if we don't, hey, look, Ted Cruz tried. Who else was going to do it? So that's the lens that everything is through for a Republican lawmaker, for any lawmaker really. As we've seen, it's not even just in the Republican realm of things, but more so there, and more so with Ted Cruz. So we will see. Then obviously coronavirus is the other huge story going on right now, probably even bigger than the coronavirus relief package itself. Not going anywhere. And on another note, we should speak legislatively real quick. I know that they're going to pass they're going to pass an extension to avoid a government shutdown today. One of the other things on the table this month has been that we're headed for another government shutdown here. They need to pass a spending bill so that way they can keep the government running. As happens, I think, every year and a half or so we run into one of these kind of discussions. But Rand Paul blocked it yesterday over, I don't know, some small petty bullshit like he always does. But he has said that he's going to not block it today, so that will pass. So we will run for another week smoothly. Which is another week to work toward getting us a coronavirus stimulus package. Little known fact, we almost didn't get one this week because we almost shut down our government before we got one. So there is still that going on. Then obviously there is still coronavirus. Obviously, as we stated already in the podcast, we are headed for a period of immense loss. Likely insurmountable numbers of lives will be lost over the next 60 days, according to the CDC director. That is a direct result of people being tired of having to care about coronavirus. That is the direct result of our government focusing more on, again, trying to overturn an election. So that way the people involved in government that have been involved in the greatest failure our country has ever seen by our government, which is the coronavirus response by this administration, instead of doing anything to help over the past month, which has been one of the worst months that we've had, if not the worst month that we've had of coronavirus yet in the past 9 months that it's been with us, they've spent the better part of it trying to overturn an election instead of help the people that are getting killed and getting crushed financially and losing their livelihoods and everything. So that is where we are on that. The other big story, the good news is there is a vaccine on the way. So some people will be in a better place than they are today, even as early as next week. Some people will feel safer as early as next week. But the fact remains that there will still be a large swath of Americans. Honestly, the large number, the greater amount of us, will still be at an incredibly high risk of catching coronavirus over the next 6 to 8 months because the vaccine will not be readily available for us because of more government failures in not buying enough vaccines for everybody whenever the opportunity had arisen. So there is always... It just seems like there was always something else with this administration, which is why it's so refreshing that we're almost done with it, hopefully. And then obviously the other big story that we're watching is... That's really it. Those are it. And then the attempt to overturn the election, which has been really more just a weeks-long show of different politicians and formerly respected people making fools of themselves. Doing everything they can to shatter what were once fine enough reputations or just any sense of willing to be a part of a functioning society. What we're seeing from the Republican Party over the past week, over the past 2 days, where again they have this new brief they're filing in some states, that they were able to get 106 United States representatives to sign off on, to try to get this case heard in Supreme Court. Something the Supreme Court has already said they will not do. Though there is still a chance now that they will hear it, even so. This isn't a fringe issue with the Republican Party anymore, and in fact, it is going to be really a defining moment for the Republican Party here on what side of the aisle they land on this, and we are seeing so far that, again, 106 plus of them yesterday are choosing to be on the wrong side of it, following frivolous lawsuits, speculation without evidence toward wrongdoing by people who, again, just wanted to make their voices heard in a free and fair election. But alas, here we are. So those are what we have to watch and look forward to this week. We'll see if any of it changes into next week and where we are. But we will be back, as we said, with more Own Another Thing next week. You can subscribe to us. You can go back and catch other Own Another Things on Spotify. Just search for us. Follow us. Don't miss episodes. Again, we'll be back. We're not taking time off for the holidays. So keep that in mind whenever you're making your year-end lists, whenever you're saying what your favorite podcasts of 2020 were. Don't forget who didn't leave you when you needed us most, and that's us. So we'll be back next week. We'll be back the week after that. We'll be back the week after that with more and another thing, and then who knows what'll be going on. We'll be, before we know it, we'll be like 3 weeks away from Inauguration Day. We'll be 3 weeks away from everything we talked about today being totally moot, being totally outdated topics, so we can look forward to that. Back next week. Have a good week. Enjoy it.